Decimals. Fractions to percentages. Method 1 of converting fractions to percentages. Use long division. So our first step will be to divide the top number of the fraction, the numerator, by the bottom number of the fraction, the denominator. Then we're going to go ahead and multiply the number then by 100. So let's look at an example. Example 1. Convert 1/4 to a percent. So for this problem, we're going to take 1 and divide it by 4. Now, 1 is a lot smaller than 4, so we need to add a decimal and a 0. So then the question is, 4 can't go into 1, but can it go into 10? Well, 4 times 2 is equal to 8. So 4 can go into 10 2 times. So we put it above the 0, and then we put the 8 below the 0, and we subtract. Well, we need to borrow. This becomes 0, this becomes 10. Now 10 minus 8 is 2. Then we have a remainder, so let's add another 0. Bring it down. So now we have 20. Well, 4 can go into 20 5 times. 4 times 5 is 20. We go ahead and subtract, and we get 0, because 20 minus 20 is 0. And then we go back up, and we bring the decimal straight up. And so now we have a decimal. But we're not done, because we need to multiply this number then by 100. So we get 100 times 0.25. Well, we have 5 times 0 is 0, 5 times 0 is 0, 5 times 1 is 5. Then we're going to do a placeholder of 0. Then we move on to 2. 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 1 is 2. Now we go ahead and add. 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 plus 0 is 0. 5 plus 0 is 5. Then bring down the 2. Then we need to count for how many decimal place values are there. Well, there's 2 here and 0 for the 100. So we need to move it over to the left 2 times. 1, 2. So now we get 25. So our percent is 25%. So when we converted 1/4 to a percent, we would say then it's 25%. Now let's do another example. Example 2. Convert 3/16 to a percent. So, like before, we're going to take the 3 and then divide it by 16. Now, 3 is a lot smaller than 16, so we're going to go ahead and add a decimal. And let's go ahead and add 2 this time. Now, 16 can't go into 3, but it can go into 30 how many times? Well, 16 times 2 is equal to 32. So it's not quite 2 times, but it can go into it 1 time. Because 16 times 1 is 16. We go ahead and subtract. We need to go ahead and borrow, because we have a 0 here. So this is 10 now. 10 minus 6 is 4. 2 minus 1 is 1. So now we have 14. Let's go ahead and bring down this 0. Now 16 can go into 140 how many times? Well, we remember our trick with 16 times a 10, we would just add a 0. So 16 times 10 is 160. So it's a little bit less than that. So let's do 16 times 8. 6 times 8 is 48. 8 below, carry the 4. 1 times 8 is 8, plus 4 is 12. So we got 128. Well, if we added another 16, that would be 144. So that would be over 140. So 16 can go into 148 times. Put the 8 above. 16 times 8 is 128. So we go ahead and subtract. we need to go ahead and borrow. So this is a 3 now, because we go 4 minus 1. Then we borrow a whole 10, so now we have 10 ones. So 10 minus 8 is 2. 3 minus 2 is 1. 1 minus 1 is 0. So we just have 12. So we still need to keep going. So we add a 0, bring it down. So now we have 120. Well, if 16 times 8 is 128, we can do 16 times 7. 6 times 7 is 42. Put the 2 below, carry the 4. 1 times 7 is 7, plus 4 is 11. So we get 112. So let's put a 7 up here. So 16 times 7 is 112. We go ahead and subtract. We need to borrow because it's 0 minus 2. So this becomes a 1. This becomes a 10. So 10 minus 2 is 8. 1 minus 1 is 0. 1 minus 1 is 0. So it's just 8. So we need to add in 1 more 0. Bring it down. So now we have 80. Now 16 going to 80 how many times? Well, we know 16 times 10 is 160. So let's go 16 times 5. Because then that would be half. So 6 times 5 is 30. The 0 below, carry the 3. 1 times 5 is 5, plus 3 is 8. So that's 80. So 16 can go into 80 5 times. We go ahead and subtract this 80 and we get 0. So we need to bring the decimal straight up. And now we have 0.1875. Now, all we need to do is multiply this by 100. So we're going to do the trick. What if we just go ahead and multiply by 100? Remember, we can leave our zeros all out on the side. So we'll just bring those straight down. We get a 0 and a 0. Then we go 5 times 1, which is 5. 1 times 7 is 7. 1 times 8 is 8. 1 times 1 is 1. So we did that a lot faster. Remember that this was our trick. We can do that when it ends in zeros. So we just put the zeros out and then we just multiply the numbers. So it all works out. Then we need to count for the decimal. Well, we have 4 decimal places here. And then we have 0 here for decimal places. So we need to move it over to the left 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it ends up right there. So that means our solution then is 18.75%. And this would be our final answer. Now let's go over a different method. Method 2 of converting fractions to percentages. So we're going to use long division. So the first step is going to stay the same. We're going to divide the top number of the fraction, the numerator, by the bottom number of the fraction, the denominator. Then we're just going to move the decimal point 2 places to the right. Example 3. World Health Organization estimates 7 million of the world's population dies from air pollution. Which is World Health Organization, estimates that 9 out of 10 people breathe air that has high levels of pollutants. Convert 9 out of 10 to a percent. So our first step is the same. We're going to go 9 divided by 10. Well, 9 can go, we put a decimal and put a 0, so it doesn't change the number. Then 10 can't go into 9, but it can go into 90, because we go the first 2, 9 times, because 10 times 9 is 90, so we put that below, and we subtract, and we get 0. Then we bring our decimal straight up, and then we have 0.9. Then we need to move our decimal to the right twice. So we can move 1, 2, and we ended up right there. So then our new answer is 90%. And this is our fraction as a percent. Now let's do another example. Example 4. If a movie theater is about half full, How could this be represented as a percent? Well, 1 divided by 2, so it's the same first step. So 2 can't go into 1, so we'll just go ahead and add a decimal and a 0. Well, 2 can go into 10 5 times. We put the 5 above the 0. 2 times 5 is 10. We go ahead and subtract. 10 minus 10 is 0. Bring the decimal straight up, and we get 0.5. Now we have 0.5. We need to move the decimal as our second step. Let's go ahead and add some zeros. We move it to the right twice, so 1, 2, which ends up right there. So our percentage is 50%. So if we say 1/2 as a fraction, this can be represented as 50%.